Hey guys, welcome to the Self-Evident Podcast. It is Sunday night, 7 p.m. I'm Mike. We've got Massey.
Hey, what's up?
Guys, this is the last week that we are doing the Self-Evident Podcast on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Next week, we will be live at 9 o'clock a.m. on Saturdays. Remember, 9 o'clock a.m. on Saturdays. We'll be reminding you all week. We moved it. We felt that would be a better time. That way you can watch your football. You can, watch the Lions lose if you want. But Stafford's winning, so that's good. But be sure to tune in. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to watch. Be sure to make sure that you're leaving likes, you're sharing, commenting. Let us know how you feel. Let us know what you want us to talk about.
Cool.
And if something happens where you can't tune in live, you're more than welcome to check it out on YouTube. You can check it out on Facebook after it's done. Go through our videos. You can check it out on Spotify, iTunes, all of the podcast platforms. That being said, guys, check out our merch too. Don't forget, 1776truth.store. Check out the t-shirts. I got one on. Massey's got one on.
Of course. Hey, guys, also, don't forget to share this with your friends. The more shares, the more views. The more views, we break the cycle of silencing, guys, because we know it's happening. We don't care.
Yeah.
We're going to keep doing what we do, right? It always happens. But we're also getting some major, again, hits on SoundCloud and all these other places, so it's great. But if you're on Facebook, tell us where you're from right now. Take a minute, share the video. If you're on Instagram, hi, Jemmy. Just there's a lot of people tuning in, especially on YouTube. Hey, guys, comment where you're from if you're watching on YouTube. And please comment throughout this thing. Guys, we have a very important and special guest tonight. But the reason we want you to comment is because all of us have questions. Now, you're probably going to have questions we've answered 100 times. Maybe you haven't heard a lot of the answers, and we're totally down to answer those things. But be patient with us because, hey, there's a lot of questions and a lot of comments. So, again, comment below where you're from. Share this video with your friends. Get them on here, and let's get moving.
So let's get to our guest, if she's still here, if she hasn't run wildly from us.
She's probably thinking, what whack job podcast did I become part of? You can see her right now on the screen. I can see her in the small screen right now. She's like, oh, geez.
So let me go ahead and introduce. Let's throw up second slide. So this is Bonnie Snyder of FIRE, Foundation for Individual Rights and Education. So she's been an educator with 20 plus years of experience in a variety of roles in different institutions. She's been a teacher, counselor, administrator, and professor. So she's hit all these areas, guys, in both public and private schools. New Jersey native. Get this. Honors graduate of Harvard University. Man.
Woo!
We honor you. With a master's degree in counseling from Virginia Tech.
Oh, boy.
And a doctorate in higher education from Penn State. The fact she's still here is amazing. She is the author of The New College Reality, The Unemployed College Graduate Survival Guide, Finding Your Voice, a free speech comic, and this book that you need to check out because this is the stuff we're going to be checking.
Yes, you got to check the book out, girl.
Undoctrinate How Politicized Classrooms Harm Kids and Ruin Our Schools and what we can do about it. My best part, she loves to go to Hershey Bears hockey games. Oh. Bring her on in, Croft. Bonnie, are you there?
I'm here, yeah.
So
First off, please forgive our abysmal ignorance. We've never been to Harvard. I don't even think I've stepped foot on campus there. But I did go to college.
I have, but I felt out of place.
I graduated good laude, not summa cum laude. So I'm just letting you know. I got through it.
Yeah, well, the better for you because I had a terrible time there, and I'm not attached to the place one bit. So how about it?
Well, still,
we're honored you're here.
You have just an amazing background, an amazing experience, and we really want to tap into this tonight. I was excited to get you on here because I think this is something that you can bring a lot of experience and nuance to.
Yep.
Because oftentimes we see the fists raised and we see the complaining, but there's not a lot of solution in how to handle these issues. And you've seen it both from the inside and the outside. So to get right into it, I want to ask you from your experience, your wisdom, your knowledge through FIRE, Foundation for Individual Rights and Education. Where did this all come from? The historical, philosophical influence. How did we kind of get here? And if you could just give us just a quick synopsis of kind of the events that led up to today.
Yeah, I will try to give you a quick synopsis. I mean, I
Well,
think that
you go as long as you need.
downward drift from the academy is which you've identified a lot of the factors. The credentialization of teachers is a huge problem. The ed schools, I actually was speaking. I'm in Boston. I'm in Cambridge right now because I was at a conference of parents who are ticked off. I was going to say something else, I also
You
come
can say it.
We'll allow you.
I come at this also as a parent who had to pull my kid out of a school because not only was the teaching atrocious, but I caught them lying to me. And
Oh,
more people are catching teachers who are just outright deceptive. And it's bad enough when you have bad lessons going on in the classroom, but if you're going to be a liar, then you're just a bad person and you're not a good moral role model for anyone's children. So this is happening all across the country. So how did we get here? I mean, I would say leftward drift in the ed schools until there's no viewpoint diversity
Wow.
left.
Truth.
I actually I've got my bags here because, like I said, I was just speaking at a conference and I showed a big picture of a dumpster fire to illustrate what's happening. But I held up a copy. Well, I brought two books with me. One is a copy of the Communist Manifesto that was assigned to me 6 times when I was an undergraduate, and that's the
Whoa!
only book. I was an English major. And
oh, high
We
and
weren't calling them all dumb, just him.
five.
it's fine. And it's the only book I was assigned more than once. And I told the story. I said, the first time it was assigned to me, this was in the 80s, kind of the crescendo of the Cold War.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, I'm pretty sophisticated. Look at me. I'm reading the Communist Manifesto. And then the second
Right.
time they assigned it to me, I thought, the joke's on you. I already read it. Now I don't have to buy it again. And then the third time they assigned it to me, I thought, what the F is going on here? And then
No, seriously.
Really?
and then fourth, fifth, and sixth time, I just thought, who isn't supervising my education here? Because this is ridiculous.
No kidding.
The book that is the equivalent of that in ed schools is Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire. I think I did spend some time in short story long. I thought I would become an English professor, and when I encountered critical theory, which was really just hitting in ed, it really came out of the humanities. It came out of English
Right.
departments, believe it or not. And
Right.
I was more interested in literary appreciation, and I wanted to learn how to become a great writer, like Tolstoy or like Dickens or somebody that I really admired. And all I heard in my classes was, well, Dickens, Chaucer's a male.
Because that determines everything.
Yeah, and well, and this is true, awkward but true. I was very depressed about it and disappointed. And I'm looking at the scholarly, research that they're putting out, and I'm thinking I would never. I can't think of anything I would rather write less than this kind of whatever it was. Nobody reads it.
Right.
But and so I went to my advisor, and I was not enjoying graduate school, and you could tell that the spirit had left them. They were just completely drained of any, joy and in their lives. And they said, if you want to get a job in this field, you were going to need to specialize in lesbian literature. And I thought, I'm done. I'm done. Like, I'm sure I've read books by
Unreal.
lesbians, but what is that? Why would I read a book because a lesbian wrote it? Why? So I left. And eventually I did go back to grad school specifically to become a higher education administrator. And I went to Penn State. I was assigned a lot of Paulo Freire. I hated it. I took a long mental health break in the middle of it, and then I decided, if people like me don't finish, then nothing will ever change. I did finish, and I was never really hired. I worked as an adjunct faculty member. I was a teacher educator for a number of years. So if I could just speak a little bit about teacher education.
Yeah, please.
Some good news out there is I earned my teaching certificate through what's called alternate route, which means I was taken straight from Harvard and thrown into a classroom, and experienced teachers had to supervise me. I was paid that I was given night school classes for free. There were some other really nice, excellent teachers there. The teachers who trained me were high quality. And so when I see what's going on now, I just look at it and I'm like, who trained you? You can't do this. There are ethical guidelines that govern the practice of teaching. This is a profession.
Right.
And so apparently I did pick up a few things during that time. So there's two kinds of ed schools, though. There are the ed schools that are like Harvard Graduate School of Education, and Columbia Teachers College, which are just gone. They're just gone.
Yeah.
And then there are other ones that, like, my husband is a professor. I won't name the school, but Regional State University, and these are less prestigious and less cuckoo crazy puffs. Um,
Right.
so that I think some of the best teachers are probably coming out of those. If I were a parent concerned about the teachers in my children's schools, if there's any teacher choice, sometimes you can sort of ask the principal, ask for older teachers. That's my advice.
Hmm.
They're less likely to be extreme. That's not a guarantee. I mean, know the teacher individually. But at Fire, we fought against these, social justice. It's the terminology changes. I mean, jargon in education.
Always, every couple of years, they start switching stuff up
Yep.
to keep you on your toes, right?
I think it's accelerating too. So
Yeah.
back in around 2005, 2006, the NCATE, which is the national, it's like the accrediting agency for teacher education, they instituted dispositions that aspiring teachers were supposed to meet in order to be certified. And they added social justice as one of these. And Fire, this is before I was at Fire, they fought this and they were successful.
Good.
Because they said, your definition of what is just derives from your conscience. For a lot of people, probably most people, that derives from your religious convictions. But even if you're an atheist, to be told that, you see, a big lever with which to push back is it's one thing to talk about a theory. It's quite another thing to expect students to agree or to affirm it. So even we're seeing lawsuits from professors and from teachers who've had to go through some of this training,
Yeah.
DEI training and whatnot. And Fire's position, we only litigate at the higher ed level. We educate at the K-12 level because we know that what the problems we're seeing in higher ed have drifted down, and if we don't reach people younger, kids, they're bringing this anti-free speech attitude to colleges, and
Yep.
so we're trying to hit it from multiple points. Um,
So just that litigation side of that, are you guys noticing a strong increase in the activation of parents of
yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
people getting involved? Like, is Fire kind of seeing this as encouraging that
Yeah.
people are starting to get involved and get in there?
I am very encouraged. I started at Fire 5 years ago, and I at that point, I had this manuscript for the book that you mentioned, Undoctrinate, and I could not, I had a what do you call them, an agent, and she refused to promote it for me.
You're kidding me.
Oh. Surprised.
Yeah.
Even though she sold my other books, and but suddenly this past year I couldn't sell it fast enough. Like, I couldn't finish it fast enough, even though I had been working on it for about 8 years. It was like, wait and then hurry up. So the sudden mobilization of parents is the most heartening thing I've seen in a long time, and I am encouraged, and I'm optimistic. I think that what can't go on forever won't. I think that the tipping point for most parents is what it was for me, was the deception.
Right.
Yes.
The deception. And between a minor child and their parent, an adult keeping secrets, how creepy and sinister is that?
Exactly. Which was just accelerated by the whole
Yeah.
Zoom classroom idea is, don't tell your parents, this is just between us.
I think too, like it's funny because these ideas will eventually implode on themselves. I don't know if that makes sense, but they're going to implode on themselves for this reason. Even the book you mentioned, the pedagogy of the oppressed. If you look at what they say, like that book, I've read pieces of it here and there. I didn't read the whole thing, to my detriment. I just didn't read the whole thing. But what he was basically stating, anybody who's oppressed, right, should be able to fight for their liberation. But those liberative causes should only be led by the oppressed. Well, now you're seeing elites run these oppressive groups, and they're following the elites. Eventually, it's going to turn on themselves. You
Well,
know,
I often make the point now that most of this ideology makes this one point that it's all about
right?
power and oppression, and who's got power. And they're taking little kids and being like, you are an oppressor and you are oppressed, which is such a disempowering message.
That's
I mean,
exactly it.
they're inciting shame and guilt in the
Right.
targeted and then the victims. It's just pitiful. But I make the point that they're very good at seeing power and oppression, except they don't look in the mirror and realize how much power a teacher has over a student and how much power an adult has over a child. Like, why don't you apply that lens to yourself and knock it off?
I
Um,
want you to kind of talk about Fire's like the entire mission of Fire, because I met some of your representatives in California. I think it was. His name escapes me. Dude with
Josh.
glasses.
I
Yes,
think you
Josh.
meant Josh Haverlock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he what a great guy, and
Mhm.
he came to the table. I went to his. We had this great discussion. He was cool. As I'm a pastor, I'm a Christian, so he was like, can you make a non-biblical case for pro-life? And I said, of course. And we had this great discussion, and it was cool. And but just to see them, young people, excited about talking
Mhm.
about liberty, rights, and all that stuff is what really excited me. And he said, can you have our director come on to the podcast? I'm like, we can have you come on the podcast. He's like,
Mhm.
oh, no, I'm not well spoken. I was like, okay, you will be though next year, so we'll probably get you on next year.
Yeah,
But
and I think
you're
fire actually you're supposed to have worked it for 2 years before you, you know, speak publicly. Maybe
oh, got it. But
you never. Um,
they completely respect you there. I just kind of want you to talk about what you guys are doing is amazing. We stand behind what you're doing. Can you just talk
Fire
more about
is
Fire?
awesome, and everyone should check out Fire. We are nonpartisan. We have people from all across the political spectrum, and it's like it was when I was growing up. Like people say what they actually think, and people go, "Oh, that's interesting," and nobody hates anybody because of it. Imagine.
Amen.
Crazy, huh?
Great.
So our president and CEO, he is, I believe, he's definitely on the left, and I believe, is an atheist. I'm not. I don't want to. I believe so.
You don't want to speak for
And
him, but
yeah, no, I think he said that. And
yeah.
he wrote Coddling of the American Mind with Jonathan Haidt, which was a New York Times
Really?
bestseller. Yeah. So, um,
Okay.
and he was talking in Boston. I convinced him to come up because this convention we just had this past weekend was called Parents Unite, and it's Boston private school parents who and I have been trying to get into New England since I started at Fire, and this was and finally it's there. Even in New England, they've had enough.
Which
Like the
that's saying something.
yeah, the private schools, because a lot of people think, well, I'm going to yank my kid out of public school and put him in private school. Well, that's just going from the fire into the fry,
That's
into
right.
Right.
That's
the
right.
other, whatever the saying is.
To
Right
the
now,
frying
those
pan in the
are
fire.
even worse. And believe it or not, I'm not saying you have more leverage as a public school parent than as a private school parent because, in a private school, they can violate your First Amendment rights because it's freedom of association. You don't have to be there. In a public school, they are bound by the First Amendment. So what we do at Fire
Right.
is we defend constitutional rights. Mostly it is First Amendment things, but it also includes due process. We've done our lawyers most of our employees are lawyers. I'm not, but a lot of due process work with Title IX and a couple years ago, the rape crisis on what was it called? That was
Oh
the
yeah.
big,
Yeah. I
yeah, that
remember
was,
that.
and so a lot of people were being accused of things and weren't being, having their
Yeah, fair
degree.
and proper trial. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Freedom of association. I think that we tried with Harvard's final club. I guess we kind of did win with those because anyway, freedom of association. You can single sex clubs and things like that. So that's what we do, and we try to educate. In terms of K-12, Greg, our president, Lukianoff, he has pointed out that the biggest concern for First Amendment freedoms are with the students, not with the
Right.
teachers. Teachers' speech in public schools is hired speech. And I would say, students and parents have rights, but teachers have responsibilities, and that's
That's
why they're
right.
paid.
That
Uh,
That's a perfect point.
that gets into one of the questions that I had sent to you was this kind of intersection of rights classification. So if we could expand that, so you've got parents, you've got children, you've got teachers. So how do we interact, or how do we handle that intersection of rights where there's a conflict, especially in the public schools?
Teachers have very few First Amendment rights in the classroom. I actually have a talk that I'm going to be giving at the National Council for the Social Studies. We go to a lot of conferences, and I go over the limits of teacher speech. And there are, and it's based on when teachers have gotten in trouble with the law and been fired, and the firing has held up. So teachers are expected to deliver instruction that is aligned with the learning standards that are democratically adopted by the state. The whole time I was writing Undoctrinate, I kept in the back of my mind, if I could have had any silly subtitle, it would have been, "This is not a free for all, people." You don't just make this stuff up. And you hear these teachers who are like, "My classroom, in my classroom." Well, that classroom belongs to the public. They're paying for it. It's
That's
not.
right.
Ooh, that's good.
So with
Public
what happened, this is kind of a side caveat. The teacher that got busted by Project Veritas in
Yeah.
California, what recourse? Like, because a lot of these guys will be protected by the unions and all these other things. I don't know. Did he get fired or something like that?
I don't
But
remember,
he was the one
honestly.
that was like he was teaching them all about BLM, and he was like Project Veritas did this whole thing on him. I suppose you didn't watch it because you don't have social media, because you hate social media.
Because I'm trying not to rot my brain.
Right. But what kind of recourse should have happened immediately with that teacher, if you could tell our listeners?
Well, teachers are licensed by the state. And the reason they're licensed by the state is because they're in a position to do harm, because they're licensed the same way that a doctor is, or a lawyer, or even a cosmetologist, because you have access to vulnerable people, and nobody's more vulnerable than minor children. And these are not
Great
your
point.
children.
That's
They're
really
other
good.
people's children. So, I think, we've had a failure of oversight. I think there's been a lot of complacency. Licenses can be pulled by the state, and there are professional misconduct. So if you have a teacher who is having a free for all in the classroom, I would look at the disciplinary code at your state Department of Education. You can report them. And I think that parents are having to wake up. I think there's been a lot of decades, maybe centuries of trust, this golden idea of bringing an apple to the teacher and the
Right.
first day of school and lunch boxes, and they would have, listen to your teacher, Johnny. And I have wonderful memories of, I did not have one terrible K-12 educator.
Me
So
neither.
yeah. And there are a lot, we hear at Fire from many K-12 educators who are as upset about what's going on as the parents are. And some of them are speaking up. They're in a very awkward position because their jobs, some of them are not tenured. Some have resigned in, conscientious objectors. So, find the good teachers, support the good teachers, and we've got to start weeding out the bad ones. And sometimes I have sympathy for some of these teachers, because I really think they don't know better, because the ed schools have gotten that bad.
Right.
I did have a talk with Lyle Asher for ASHER. He wrote a great piece in the Chronicle a few years ago called "The Chronicle of Higher Education," called "How Ed Schools Became a Menace." And he's out in Portland, the poor guy, at a college in Portland, Oregon, and
Oof.
he says that every bad situation he sees on campus, when he traces it to its root, it always leads back to an ed school. Actually, the exact degree that I got, which is higher ed administration, and it was bad. What the degree I got was bad. And I did it specifically to be a reformer, but I think that I was like this piece of bone that they choked on, the whole time I was there. And, I probably got blacklisted, and which is why I couldn't get that kind of work, which is probably best in the long run for me.
But good on you for sticking to your conviction
Totally.
and wanting to change from the
Totally,
inside. Because
totally.
I think that's
awesome.
We come from the conservative side of things, and one of the frustrating parts is there tends to be a lot of looking from the outside in, and not a lot of, so I'm going to get in there and change it, right? I'm going to point my career path towards it in order to fix it.
Right.
And so I want to give you credit of, you saw an issue and you said, so I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do this in order to fix this.
Yeah, and we're not the kind of guys that are mad for mad's sake. We're not and I even say this to the detriment. I know we're nonpartisan. We're actually nonpartisan. We're not Democrat, Republican. We're just constitutionalist Christians. They both, to me, have destroyed a lot of the destruction of public school systems happened for both parties. You know what I mean? It's under
Right.
both parties, under both rule.
Yeah.
So it's not, to me, a partisan issue here.
Well,
What I will
Yeah,
go
sorry.
ahead.
The Christian thing is so interesting, and I'm really wrapping my head around it because I did actually have to read the entire Bible as at Harvard. Well, it used to be required. I think I took it as an elective, and because you can't really understand much of literature without understanding all of the allusions, so I took it,
Right.
in a secular way. And I listen to what they're talking about, and what they're imposing in schools right now is a completely new morality. And it oftentimes is in direct conflict with the Judeo Christian morality that families are bringing their kids up with at home. And there is a lawsuit in Nevada. And the mom who has filed it was at this conference in Boston, and
Dude.
she said, like, she has the receipts. This teacher, young teacher, actually told them, "You are gonna have to do some unlearning of your Judeo-Christian upbringings in this classroom."
Bro.
Well, this is a secular school, and, I do appreciate that in a public school, evangelical teachers have had to rein it in. I'm sure there was a time when, maybe Jewish children were expected, or whoever were expected to pray to Jesus, and that's, violating their religious rights in a secular education. So little by little, there's a great speech by Bill Barr, the former attorney general, and he talks about this, and he says, you know, that's what school was for a long time. The prayer in schools was included, and then lawsuits happened, and little by little, we removed morality, and it created this vacuum. And now this new morality, he says, it has seeped in, and it is completely antithetical to the moral systems that most of us are familiar with. And can I give you an example?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to wrap my head around this, but first I want to tell you part of my speech in Boston, and then I want to talk about the golden rule, which is one of the last surviving vestiges that most schools still sort of adhere to as a lowest common denominator
Mhm.
moral agreement
Right.
in our
One to
culture.
others.
Yeah, and at Harvard just recently, I talked about in my speech about unanimity, and this idea that one of the things at Fire that we do is we defend dissenters. And Greg, who is I believe a professed atheist, he always starts with this slide, and he's like, "We in the West, in the world, do a terrible job of handling dissenters," and he shows. Socrates drinking the hemlock. He shows someone being burned at the stake, and he shows Jesus on the cross. And he's like, this is what we do to dissenters. We make them drink hemlock, we crucify them. And dissenters often are the best truth tellers in our society. And then he talked about, several people talked about conformity, like in schools, in education schools, in academia. And my husband talks about it all the time. They'll have a vote in faculty senate, and they're not satisfied with winning the vote. They demand consensus, and
Right.
they will come for you if you are just voting against it. And it's this weird itch that they seem to need to scratch. I'm fine with losing a vote, majority rule. I get it. Just take the vote. So that's happening. But the what happened at Harvard is Harvard was founded as a Christian, as a seminary,
Was it
right?
Oh, really?
1630 something? 1637?
1630, I should know. I don't know.
It's like
Yeah,
37, I think it was.
37 to 38. Yeah.
1600s, yeah. And obviously before America, and it was because we dreaded to leave an illiterate ministry to the churches.
Right.
And I get that it's become increasingly secularized, and it's been called godless Harvard, among other things, like Moscow on the Hudson. I mean, on the Charles, rather. It's on the Charles movie. But
Just a couple names.
Yeah, there's a lot of nicknames from Harvard. And so they recently had a unanimous vote. And I brought two books. I brought the Communist Manifesto, and I brought my hymnal. I used to work as I volunteered as an usher in the Memorial Church, because Peter Gomes was an amazing minister at that time. And, you can look up some of his old sermons on YouTube, because he is just a phenomenal speaker. And it was just
Yeah.
so literate, and so I learned more from him in the Memorial Church. And I'm talking about not just, yeah, I'm talking about history and about philosophy. And he was just a very literate, extremely intelligent, amazing human being. Well, they just unanimously elected an atheist as the head chaplain at Harvard.
Yeah, that's right. We
Yeah.
heard about that. We
Yeah.
actually covered that, didn't
We
we?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
brought this up and I made a joke because in my book, I talk about the many reasons why indoctrinating kids is shortchanges them. And I went into the philosophical reasons, the pedagogical, the emotional, the ethical, the democratic, the developmental, the legal, but I left out spiritual because
right.
I didn't feel qualified. And I've been thinking about it ever since I turned in the manuscript. So maybe I'll do an article on that. Um, and but I made a joke and I said, like, I'm no theologian. And then I said, but apparently neither is the head chaplain at Harvard. So I'm going to go ahead. And a woman came up and took me to task afterwards. And apparently she might have been involved in that vote. And
Well,
she
she
wasn't
needs to stand
happy.
by her vote.
Well, and I said, "Well, hey, okay, you disagree with me, that's fine, I'm fine with that." I said, I would support your right to disagree," but she couldn't, she hectored me, and she kept hectoring me,
Right.
and she couldn't leave me alone, and I'm like, I don't see it that way," and she finally said, "But isn't," I said, "Doesn't secular humanism have enough scope to operate at Harvard? Does it really need the church as well?" And she didn't really understand, and she just kind of asked me again and again and again until finally I sort of, made it clear I was done. And, yeah, but then she said to me, "But isn't it a good thing that we've moved on from that?" And it didn't hit me until the next morning, and I thought, "Well, who are we? Who are
Right.
we?" There's this idea that you must join us, and kids are feeling that pressure. Kids are feeling bullied by their teacher. They're feeling heck
Absolutely.
yeah, and there must be unanimity. We must have consensus. Don't dare disagree. And so, this is not a proper education for people in a free republic. This is not how you train people for self-government.
Because it so
That's the word,
This is how
self-government.
you
right,
train them for
self-government.
authoritarian rule.
Right.
Right.
What it does away with is actually critical thinking, right? So
Yeah.
what's education
Oh,
supposed to be? But teaching somebody how to learn, not just putting the facts in their minds, but
right.
teaching them how to learn, right? And what we're finding is, you were talking about this consensus idea, and
Mm.
immediately what I thought of were struggle sessions from Maoist China.
Oh, yeah.
This idea of we will berate you and beat you until you understand, right?
Shame you, humiliate you. Yeah.
Right.
I think that's the difference though. Like when I think about like past education here in America, there was the Congress had printed in 1782 Bibles for schools, all these other things. The one thing that Madison had said though was if you have to force someone to believe the way that you believe, and this was a Christian, he was a Christian. He basically said you are violating the Holy Spirit. So what
Mm.
happens is Christians become jerks, and they're not even really talking. I'm gonna be honest with you. If you have to force someone to be a Christian, you're probably
You're
not
doing
one.
it wrong.
Yeah, you're probably not one because you're not ascribing to the things of God. I think in a lot of ways, it was Benjamin Franklin that said, not everybody at the history was a Christian. He said, but there wasn't a person alive who didn't hear over 1,000 sermons in their lifetime. So it was a common morality that happened. There was Christians, there were non-Christians, but we all had this common morality because there were different people of different faiths. There, of course,
Yep.
there was atheists, there was all those things, right? And for what's happening now, it's not even to do with religion. It's destroying the kids' thinking into we can't self-govern ourselves, so we need a bigger government to do it for me. And it always ends up in oppression. So the more
And
they can destroy a moral inward fabric, if they can destroy integrity, if they can destroy your calling, if they can destroy your masculinity, if they can destroy, I'm talking about on a male side, female
Mhm.
side, same thing. Then we have to depend on someone to take care of us. They love that because then it turns into government and God.
well, I'm gonna make you feel a lot better. A lot of students don't like this either. And,
No, I know that. It's waking up. Praise God. I'm saying praise God.
yeah, I mean, and students are starting to organize. We had students at this group, and they're meeting online, and,
Give
if
us hope.
anybody yeah, if anybody and they are sharp, and they know exactly what's going on. So if anybody's interested in that, you can write to me at highschooloutreach@thefire.org. I can, if you have kids who might be interested, because they're looking to get more kids involved. I mean, people, Maya Angelou said, people don't remember what you said. You remember how they made you feel. And,
Right.
people don't like being treated like this. I think it was Dale Carnegie said, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. I hope in that people are not learning the lessons that these teachers are teaching necessarily. They sort of listen to it and they think, well, you're the worst advertisement for this because you don't let me speak. You don't
Right.
let, I hate your class. And so bad lessons can be good learning experiences sometimes. And I would also say, parents, you need to interrogate your kids after school. Well, that sounds terrible. You need to debrief them, and go over the lessons and maybe correct them and balance them and give them supplemental materials. And I have suggestions on that as well that I'm happy to email to people. Because they really are attacking the underpinnings of Western civilization, obviously the Judeo-Christian Enlightenment, which is really the foundation of all of it. But
Right.
our system of laws, they're attacking that. They're attacking objective truth, the idea of it, that there's no such thing. And
That's the
um,
problem.
it's a little bit of a problem. Yeah.
And there, that, that as an aside, that gets into, I remember Dr. Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris did a debate series talking about, that underpinning of Judeo-Christian values. And Peterson was saying, look, you can't get rid of this because this is what you've built everything on. And Harris was saying, well, we've got to where we are, so now we can get rid of it. And so there was this whole argument going on of, and Peterson, I think, was right personally, of saying, but you can't get rid of it because everything will collapse because you've already built on top of it.
Yes.
And that idea of objective truth and what we're going through right now, especially with our education system, is, so you had brought up Marx. You brought up the Communist Manifesto, so I get a wedge in now. So Marx, the whole thing was deconstruction. It was critical everything. It was deconstruct all of this. Well, what do you have left if you tear it all apart?
Right.
Now, Marx always said, we'll rebuild into the utopia, but that's the trick, is you never can. And you see a lot of this ideology coming through of, let's tear down the whole system, let's start from scratch, but you can't get there. And why would you tear down something that's been so successful and so it's taken thousands of years
Right.
to get to this point? Why do we all of a sudden decide we're smart enough to tear it all down and start again?
Well, and,
So
and why are we suddenly listening to another dead white male?
right?
Oh,
Right?
Jeez. I like that.
That's good.
I got that from Charles Love. That's to you, Charles.
Would you mind answering a couple questions, Lisa, I'm sorry, Bonnie. I was reading Lisa's comment. There's some people who are like educators, and I'm wondering if you could like just kind of shed some light on what they're asking.
I'll try.
Okay. Here's Lisa. Lisa Keller. She said, the reality is there's little oversight in our classroom. School boards and administrators really don't know what materials are included in curriculum packages, nor do they know what an appropriate curriculum should look like for a particular subject and grade level. Administrators cannot be in my classroom every hour, every day. I'm opposed to video surveillance in my classrooms. Do we really want our children trained to think that it's normal to be on surveillance all the time? What say you to that?
Yeah, this is a teacher or parent?
Both.
Both. Okay. Yeah. The problem is, teachers had a lot of freedom and operating scope back in the days when we trusted them. And a lot of that trust has been squandered, unfortunately. And I warned that at the end of my book, and already it's come to pass. In more than half the states, now there are proposed or enacted legislations banning certain concepts from being promoted in classrooms, which is these checks. We have a decentralized system of education in the United States of America, which is a really good thing when bad ideas are on the march.
Right.
This one is, metastasizing pretty quickly. And I don't think that people should be surprised that legislators are invoking their right to govern the curriculum in schools. That being said, there's always been a generous amount of looking the other way, trusting in the inherent ethical conduct of teachers. Well, teachers are being reined in, and this is what the cost of broken trust. I have mixed feelings myself on cameras in the classrooms. I know that some of our lawyers at FIRE are very opposed to it. It has its own problems where it can chill speech of students.
Right.
It's probably intended to chill the speech of teachers, and perhaps rightfully so, to monitor them, but it might have the side effect of making kids feel really uncomfortable. So I guess my response to that is, let's get it together, teachers, or else this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think video surveillance is what's tricky about it is even just on a governmental side, right? The more we give someone else authority to watch over me, I've given them that authority now to do it. and it never stops. Once it goes to a classroom, they can put it on, honestly, TV sets. If you're not watching it, that actually says it on, when I fired up my this one here, the monitor, it was like, hey, this could be sold to companies, we have the right to view, and it's like weird stuff. And I'm not into conspiracies like that. I don't care. But what I'm saying is, and they're true, a lot of them are true. But
Well, we wouldn't know about the Antifa teacher were it not for that was secret recording, I guess, and we wouldn't know about a number of incidents were it not for kids with cell phones. So, regardless, there are cameras in classrooms because every kid probably has a cell phone.
sure,
Right.
I can't even imagine being a kid and feeling that I needed to surveil my own teacher because
isn't that
I knew
crazy?
that what was going on in class was bad. I trusted my teachers and they all proved worthy of that trust really until graduate school.
Same here. I grew up in a small town, Sleepy, Minnesota. It was 3,000 people. I didn't have one teacher that I knew that was being stupid or anything. I graduated in 99. My teachers were amazing. I never heard one time a lack of quite the opposite. I had Hispanic ladies teaching Spanish that were like, "Are you coming to school on time?" Like they were like my moms, and like my math teacher, my algebra teacher was always on me about getting good grades, and never did I feel like we were being indoctrinated. And then all of a sudden you get to bigger cities and it's like, man, there it's prevalent. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, I
It
was
was
taught
crazy.
Spanish by a Cuban immigrant, and yeah, my teacher, Tom's River, New Jersey school is very good. I hope they still are.
No kidding.
You got any more questions?
I'm good.
or-
I don't think so. No, I pretty much answered.
Okay.
It pretty much answered what she was talking
Okay.
about. That's cool.
So looking at the clock,
Bonnie, you're awesome.
Yeah.
Gotta have
any-
her on again.
Oh,
Any-
you're awesome.
We
You're
gotta
awesome.
have you on again, Bonnie.
Yeah,
I mean,
please do.
I'm Grace. Like seriously, we are so honored that you're here. That you took time for this. Knowing your schedule, I get it. The busyness
I
of life.
think we connected at a homeschooling conference, and we've been going to those lately, and my eyes have really been opened at the amazing. So I'm recommending to private school, public school parents, I'm like, even if you're not going to homeschool, go look at the resources that are available
Yes.
here and supplement.
Right.
'Cause they have
So-
got some amazing content.
That's what your representative had told me. He's like, man, this is like amazing. People actually think, and
They
you can find
care.
curriculums that think, and
Yeah.
they're not all like just Christian based. Some of them are actually thinking type curriculums. And he was admiring the fact that there were people who were of faith, but yet didn't judge him or like didn't feel like they were coming across. And he just liked that open dialogue he could have with people. I mean, it's pretty cool.
It's so interesting how humor, it used to be that people who are Christian were perceived as being humorless and judgmental. And it's really interesting how humor has shifted to the, sort of the right Christian, and the humorlessness is now on the left. I find that fascinating. That lady who gave me the
I've
dressing down was very humorless.
been known to tell a joke a
It's-
time or two.
It's the authoritarians that lose all the humor. They're all uptight.
Well, that was the thing, and I said I'm no theologian, but neither is the head chaplain at Harvard.
Oh, that's so good. Can
I
I use
love
that?
that
I gotta
one.
use that.
Yeah, I was like, it's a joke.
So
like,
good.
I'm sorry, your sense of humor died, but I was kidding.
Go ahead,
Actually, incidentally, Greg Lukianoff, before I started at Fire, produced a video with several comedians, and it's called "Can We Take a Joke?" about like the death of humor. And comedians were also early canaries, saying
Yeah.
something's really bad in our culture. 'Cause
Yeah, and they
that's how
stopped
you
going
release
on.
aggression is through humor.
Right, and they stopped going on campuses and everything. I know, what was it? Seinfeld said he wasn't going to go on campuses
Yeah, Bill
anymore.
Maher.
Bill Maher said he wasn't going.
Bill Burr.
They gave up because they said, "Well, nobody's
Yeah, they don't
willing
want to go there
laugh."
and get yelled at. They want to go
Right.
tell jokes, have a good time, and leave.
And
I
come to a
grew up in the
protest.
70s where we poked fun at everything and everybody, and it was kind of like how you made friends. It's like, can I insult you? And you laugh. Okay, we're friends now, And now,
Did you have you seen any of those roasts that Don Rickles did and stuff?
Yes,
My
of course.
gosh, I mean, it was like today would be. They don't even show them; it's so taboo. But it was hilarious.
Right.
When he did the roast of Ronald Reagan at his second, oh my gosh, so good. We were laughing.
and they also did Donald Trump, so it was pretty recent that they roasted Donald Trump.
That's right.
Yeah. He was
Anyways.
a good sport about it.
Well, you have to come back and have some more laughs with us, please. You can laugh at our expense too.
The
You're
other thing
allowed
too
to.
is thank you for the hope and telling us that
Yeah.
students are changing. I've been saying that I travel a lot. I travel all over the country. I know kids are changing. Their
Yeah.
parents are changing. That's what's exciting me. Parents are changing, saying, no, we're going to stand up to this crap and we're not going to take this anymore. So keep doing that. Keep doing what you're doing, because parents that don't see that, they freak out. They're like, oh my gosh, our country's going to hell in a handbasket. But it's like, no, look, we're winning. You're seeing kids change, and they're the ones who are going to change it. We just got to keep supporting.
The whole private school world was very closed to me, and it's not something I'm familiar with. And suddenly I have a lot of private school friends, and it's like we suddenly have so much in common and we share the same problems. And I think that's breaking down that barrier, I think is really healthy too.
Awesome.
So thank you so much, Bonnie,
My
for
pleasure.
coming on. And
how can we find her? How can we find your organization?
So tell us contact info, all the stuff you want people to know.
Yeah, to reach us, go to thefire.org/K12. We have downloadable curriculum materials that are standards aligned, and we have a free speech essay contest for high school students. We'll give away $20,000 for the best essays this year, and every year, all sorts of resources.
I read one, $20,000. I could use that. Those Mexicans broke.
She didn't say no.
Please.
You have to be a high school junior or senior.
Oh, I act like one. Doesn't that make anyway?
You're close enough. Just re-enroll. You need a couple more credits. But
Right. Hey, thanks.
I'm getting you back for earlier.
What a jerk. All right, cool.
Anyways, okay.
I'm hurt now.
Did we get all info posted up?
Yep,
Croft?
right here. Yeah, it's all
okay.
posted.
Croft's
right
got posted. Bonnie, thank you so much for coming in, talking
Anytime.
to us. So we will have you back again soon. So have a great night. We'll talk to you later. All right. Bye. Thanks. Okay, guys. So
Lisa, do it then. Have them enter it. $20,000, girl. Lisa
do it.
Keller,
guys,
seriously.
Guys, enter that.
Look, this a lady named Nadina. I've never seen you on the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Your comments were amazing, Nadina. Thank you so much for the comments. She was like, girl, preach. White is not right. She had some really cool comments. Very, very cool. Lisa was really commenting a lot. You know, guys, what we love is how she came in just ripping and gave hope.
Yep.
It wasn't this weird, like, oh, the schools are being infiltrated. No, they're infiltrated, but we're taking it back. And that's like, come on, that's what we need. You know what I mean? And how ironic. And this should be a reproof to all Christians that they can come on to this group, to this program, and give us more hope than what you're hearing sometimes from our churches. You're hearing it sometimes from our Christians. And there are some Christians that are preaching it. Listen, there are some Christians doing it. But you're seeing a lot of schools saying, oh, just Lord, I hope you come back because it's just getting so bad. Listen to what I'm not saying she's an atheist. I don't think she is.
No,
she's a Christian. You're right. But it's like when you hear the atheists are standing up for our rights.
Right.
To do what we're doing. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's why she came into this, guys, was hope. Notice she was the one who stepped in and created a career in order to take care of a problem. And so maybe
Nadina,
that's encouraging people to go through.
Girl, hey, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. She said, I'm sorry. No, it's cool. She's
Kanye.
Hey, thank you you're awesome. Thanks for tuning in, girl.
All right, Kanye, you good?
Kane West. Kane.
If you don't get that joke, search Kanye and Taylor Swift. You'll get the joke. Really. But anyways, so
it was Beyonce that won. That's Kanye. That was the Kanye joke.
Yes, exactly.
Jeez,
check it out. Check it out. Just check out Kanye, Taylor, Beyonce. You'll get it. Anyways, so that was a dumpster fire of an end to a great interview. Bonnie, thank you so much. Which, go figure, she mentioned dumpster fire. Did you hear that?
Yeah, dude. And you were like, dumpster fire. The moment she said it, that's how I knew you were
saw
laughing.
It in my head.
I did.
You?
I was like, he's gonna say it. Dumpster fire.
I was so tempted.
Say it.
I was so tempted, but I didn't. But now that I know that she wants the more humor, next time I'm saying it. So,
dude, how cool! Thanks, you guys, for tuning in. I'm sorry.
What else you got? Let's clear through.
I just like Lisa Keller said, this was great. Thanks. Yes. Hope from another English teacher. I'm not alone. Praise God.
Yes.
Gloria says, hey, Gloria, we are supporting you in your run for town council. Check Gloria Tucker out if you're in the Jupiter area. That's amazing. So guys, there's so much here. There's so much hope to be had. We are not losing this thing. I'm telling you. God is on the throne and he's winning.
Right.
All you have to do is read the book of Exodus. And I'm telling you something, it's there. God, we have answers now. We're the ones we're good. If you can't believe that, why would God send us to do the impossible? I'm sorry. We're not done yet. We're not done. Those kids do not belong to Satan. They don't belong to the school systems. They belong to you. So it's time for you to take authority in your house over your kids. Start praying over your kids. Start blessing your house. Start blessing their minds. Teach them the truth and walk in it yourself so you're not a hypocrite, and watch your kids flourish. I'm telling you, there is so much hope to be had in this country. We're not done yet at all. So keep standing. We're going to win this thing. I'm telling you, it's going to be worse. It's going to get darker before it gets better. So let's keep standing.
Which will activate you and it will move you forward because it gets darker. So you know you have to step up. We've been asleep. It's time to wake up. So guys, don't forget, next week, Saturday morning at 9 a.m. is when we're coming on. If you tune in at Sunday at 7 p.m., you can check out the recorded, but you won't be able to check out the live. So Saturday, we'll see you at 9 a.m. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you so much for Bonnie Snyder for coming in, representing Fire.
I'm just going to say this. I'm down a shirt size, guys.
There we go.
I'm down a shirt size. I'm
See?
down a shirt size. Now, I'm still a big boy, but I'm still down a shirt size. Keep praying for me.
All right. Until next week, Saturday, 9 a.m. Guys, we will see you next week.
Goodbye.
We love you.